Hey.
Yay. Yay. That was a nice intro. I like that.
Short and sweet and to the point. There we go. All right. All right. So, Kerry, I always start this way. I always say, hey, as you're logging in or you're anybody here, if you're comfortable, put it in the chat, your name, where you're from. We can't see you or hear you unless you put something into the comments. And if you just want to be a fly on the wall, that's okay too. Just because a lot of people are new. Like a lot of my clients that log in, it's like, oh, I've never done this before. I don't know what to do. So comments is how we know you're here. So we always welcome comments, questions, anything. Okay. All right. So Kerry, take it away. Introduce yourself.
Take it away. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. My name is Kerry Dobson. I'm the group coaching expert is what I go around talking about. And so I work with coaches and authors who are looking to put together a group coaching program and really help them to take kind of what they do one-on-one with their clients and make it into a group. So looks like Chastity's here. It's so good to see you, Chastity.
Yay, from Alabama. So what is like 4 o'clock? 1, 2, 3. You have to count on my fingers.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Well, that's how we got connected, right? On LinkedIn. And I have a group of real estate agents that I coach, and it's going strong. In fact, I'm going to be starting another group because I have to stop that one from growing, right? It gets too big. Yeah. And then I'm starting a new group, Grow to Great. And Kerry has been so wonderful helping me organize it and, create a path that's very focused. And I love that. So how did you get into doing this?
Yeah. So it's funny. I started when I left university and went into sales. And there was parts of the job that I liked and parts that I didn't. And you would not classify me as the most successful salesperson, because what I discovered was I spent so much time in the back end helping my clients learn to use the equipment that I was selling to them, which didn't actually help my sales process because it was kind of a once every 5-year purchase. So, So what I did was I realized like, oh, maybe I should focus on the part that I really like. And that's how I kind of went into learning and development and training. So I spent about 15 years doing that in corporate and, lots of education and experience in that. And then I had a COVID layoff and I was in the US, but I'm a Canadian citizen. So I had to move back to Canada. I had to get out of the country, during a pandemic, all that kind of stuff. And so I say all that because that time allowed me to really think about what it is that I want to do. And what I realized is I loved what I did, but I didn't want to do it anymore for executives telling me what other people should be learning about. And instead, I wanted to work with coaches like yourself who are here to help serve people that want to learn, that want to be coached, that want to try new things versus kind of being forced into it. So it was a pivot in terms of who I supported, but the work that I get to do and creating those group experiences, that's all the same.
Yeah, cool. Very cool. And so I'm going to stop and say hi to Gretchen and say hi to Rachel. Drive safe, because as I'm here as I'm driving. Thank you, Gretchen. So Gretchen, please chime in, because Gretchen's a fellow coach, right? So and I find it interesting because I've coached real estate agents and group coaching one-on-one and group coaching for realtors. It just comes naturally, and I've done it for so long. I don't want to say, I'm just doing it blindfolded. I'm not. I'm very intentional. But that's not why I reached out to Kerry. I reached out to Kerry. It's like, okay, so now I want to have a group of business owners. I call it Grow to Great, and it's of any business owner. I mean, obviously realtors can get on it. They're business owners, but most likely they'd go into the realtor group. And I was like, well, now what?
Right? Yes. No. And I think that's the thing about groups in general. What I've noticed is, and I call it flippant, and it's probably the wrong word, but it's kind of like it's assumed that as a coach, you should then have a group program, right? Like, oh, you're a coach, you should have a group program. Oh, you're a successful coach, you should have a group program. And it's not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's not as simple as just saying, okay, I'm now going to have a group program, right? there's strategy behind it. You have to think about, a lot of what you and I talked about was what do these people need? What do they want, right? What is this group really in need of and need the support from? And how can a community or a group really serve them in what they're trying to do? And so it's not as simple as saying, oh, this is what I do with a one-on-one client. I'm just going to now do it with 5 to 10 or 12 or 20 clients at one time. It's really about kind of sitting back and saying, why am I doing a group as a business owner? First and foremost, what's your reason behind it? How does it match what you're doing and complement what you're already providing? And then the other part is what are my clients really looking for? And how do I really help them to show up in this group and get the most out of it?
Yeah. And what I loved when we were creating together the Grow to Great group is, okay, so you're going to spend 10 minutes here and then 20 minutes here. And, it was so specific, and it was like, okay, so I say this with my clients, will say this, well, Tanya, I can do this without you. I'm like, yeah, but it's harder. It takes longer. You learn lessons the hard way. Right. And you just, and then when I coach somebody, it's like, yeah, I give them a roadmap and we come up with what works. And then this is just like so perfect, because that's exactly what you did with me. It's like, wow, I have a roadmap and a plan and my tactics. And it was just so wonderful. Again, I'm comfortable doing it, but I want to wow people, right? I don't want to learn my lesson the hard way. Oh, I should have done this shorter or longer or whatever. You gave me great perspective around it.
Well, thank you. And I think that's one of the things that I feel most bad about, kind of that flippant message. Gretchen, you get a group and you get a group. Totally, right? Like, yeah, I love it. But
Gretchen is so fun.
I love it, right? It's what people don't recognize is that we just say go do a group program, but we don't necessarily say, how do you do that? And what does that look like? And how can you help people? So great to see you, Davina. Thank you for joining. And so part of what we're working on when we do the work together is getting really clear about what are the things that your clients need to know, right? The knowledge and wisdom that you need to share with them. What are the experiences or things that they need to be able to do to really make those moves in their business or in their life? And then what is it that they need to say either out loud to the world or in their internal mind? And so we start there so that we can build the program to get to that point where we're saying, okay, we need 10 minutes for the group to connect on this and get this experience, or we need 30 minutes for this. And so you get to that granular level so that when you show up, you're able to fully be there. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Chris. Yes. So, so the question I asked this of myself. And then when you asked it, I went even deeper when you said, what is it that you want after the group? What do you want them each to be saying? Hopefully out loud on social media, but obviously to themselves too. It's not just about me, right? What are they going to say after each session or at the end of the 6 months or whatever that looks like? And when I asked myself, when you and I were going through that with the Grow to Great group, you helped me really narrow down, because I can go over an hour.
Yes.
Right. And in fact, I think what I decided when you and I were doing this, I needed 90 minutes. I needed an hour and a half. An hour wasn't going to be enough, So I think that's one of the things we discovered together. And again, I didn't want to learn that after 2 sessions and say, hey, who can you all come an hour and a half instead of an hour? Versus after you and I went through my stuff, we're like, this is going to be rushed.
Yes.
Right?
And that's the point, right? Is if someone's given you an hour, it is your responsibility to ensure what they get done in that hour. So if you need an hour and a half because that's what it's going to take, then you want to know that ahead of time. Instead of, I do find a lot of times people be like, just go over, or it's like an extra 5 minutes and an extra 10 minutes. And it's like, no. There's a way to do this, that we plan it so that we know how much time we have and we can make sure it can happen. The other thing that I think really stood out as we were working together is when you were thinking about what do my business owners want to be able to say, it's super powerful, because at the end of your program, they're going to be able to say, I have a clear business plan. I know exactly what I need to do each month, each week, each
Right.
day,
Yeah.
right? And it's an action plan I've put into place. I know what my marketing plans are. I know what my financial goals are. I know what my accounting strategy or who I'm going to work with is. So the confidence that they get to have being able to say those things is what's really driving you behind this program, is to
Yeah.
get small business owners to have that confidence in their business.
Sure. And so you had mentioned it earlier, like what's the why about joining a group? So
Yeah.
you and I can go back and forth. One of the whys that I know with my people, like my realtors that get on, is one, it's financial, right? So it's a little bit more budget friendly being in a group versus in a one-to-one,
Yeah.
right? What else? I have a few more,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. So the question always becomes, as the coach or the leader, why are you doing a group program, right? So there's the business reason for it. So sometimes that's so that you have a more affordable or financially accessible program.
Yeah.
It could be because you want to introduce people, right? Like I think about your group, small business owners, they need to network with each other. It's a lonely job sometimes, right? Like
Yeah.
you're making all the decisions. It's really important to be part of a
Yeah.
community. So it could also be, as a coach, you want to have a bigger impact, and you can't do that one-to-one. So you need to kind of get to that one-to-many part. It could be that, you really are looking for a longer term community building program, right? And that's what you're really interested in. So
Yeah.
those are some of the reasons why a coach might decide to do a group program. Why your clients might do it, to same point, is like financially, a lot of times it's more accessible. The other thing is that it is nice to learn in community, because I can learn from more than one person, right? If
Yeah.
I'm just working with the coach, I always say, you pay your coach. So sometimes what they're telling you, you don't always believe, right? Because it's like, are you just kidding me? Like, are you just trying to
Right.
get me to do this? Versus when you start a group with people and they're in a similar spot than you, and they've put together that action plan and they've gotten leads since they started the group with you, you believe in yourself and your ability to do it because those in the group are doing it as well.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to know that you're not alone, so when we're in a group setting, we talk about budgeting, we talk about finances, right? So not everybody knows, hey, I need two different credit cards, one for personal, one for business. And I make sure everybody has a personal checking and a personal savings.
Yes.
And then, they have business and the two don't touch each other, right? And then some people think, well, okay, I'm not the only one who doesn't know how to do this, or how come I'm so stupid I don't know this? And then they see, oh, well, there's 12 other people that didn't know.
Absolutely,
Right.
right? Yes. And
Yeah.
there's 12 people that thought that way. There's also 12 other people saying, oh, like that's how you do it. Oh, that's what works, right?
Yeah.
So it makes you feel like you're part of something, and it encourages you to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's you're not alone. And in my group, I always leave like the last, so in the realtor group, I always leave the last 15 minutes for them to synergize with each other. And I never know what it's going to be. So it might be, hey, the interest rate just went over 7. What are we going to do? And they're all
Yeah.
commiserating, but I don't let it become a bitch. Sorry, language alert. I don't let it become a bitch session. That's not
Yes.
what that last 10-15 minutes is. It's like, okay, well, what do we do? How do we calm down our clients? Do we get on a video with the lender, kind of thing, right? And then
Yes.
they feel better because they all have the same action step, kind of thing. Okay, go make a video with the lender and calm your clients down, kind of thing. And then, yeah,
Yes.
it's also a stepping stone at some point to go into one-to-one coaching. But I've had some people in my realtor group now 2 years, they just won't leave. And
Absolutely,
that's
right? Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Exactly. I always say group programs can be on ramps and off ramps. I kind of have this visual of like this massive freeway, like somewhere in LA or something, where
Yeah.
it's all these on ramps and off ramps. Because as we talked about, group programs oftentimes can be a little bit more affordable, a little bit more accessible. So it can be an on ramp for people to get to experience you. And it's not so much of a commitment, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I can do this for a short amount of time, and they get to understand you. And then that might transition them to work with you one-on-one.
Yeah.
However, it can also sometimes be an off ramp where you've got people that you've worked with one-on-one, and now they're kind of saying, I want to keep going with this, but I want to do it within a group. I want to do it within community. And so then you can introduce them to your group program. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's the flexibility of it being both and all that I really love
Yeah.
about groups.
Yeah. I just saw Chris's comment. love the dynamics of being in a group, because I know he's I don't know if you still are, Chris, and if I misspeak, I apologize, and you can kick me later, but I know Chris is in a group and he teaches a group, right? So Chris is phenomenal. So I did Chris's one-on-one live streaming. And so I always get nervous when Chris gets on, because I'm like, oh no, am I doing it right? Because my teacher is on.
Yes.
And I also feel very honored when Chris, thank you, when you're on too. And I would just as happily, I mean, I was in his one-on-one program and I loved every minute of it. And obviously I'm here. He gave me the push out of the nest to be here. And he has a group program, which I'm sure is phenomenal. I have no doubt that his group program is phenomenal. And I do know sometimes when I post about groups on LinkedIn, I will get great comments. But sometimes the comments are, well, group isn't really coaching. Right. And yes, there is a lot of training, and maybe it's more training than coaching, but it can be coaching. But not everybody either knows what it is or has positive comments around it. Do you deal with that too?
Yeah. So a couple things. One is, I don't know that we have a high enough standard for our group experiences in general, right? I think so many of us think about how we were taught in school, where you had someone at the front telling you, what was right. And then they even gave you a test to tell you if you got it right. So we sometimes transition our groups to look a little bit like that. So I think that's a downside for us. And then the other part is that some topics are better suited for one-on-one versus better for groups. And so part of that is knowing your clients and what they need and what they're comfortable with. One of the things that I love to kind of encourage people to do with their group programs is have kind of a hybrid approach to it, where you still have the opportunity for some one-on-one support within a group program. So I love, if you're going to do the hybrid, my suggestion is always start your group with a one-on-one opportunity in the first couple of weeks, so that you're, touching base with everybody, you're setting them up for success. You do it at the end as well for the same thing, and then figure out where the struggle point or struggle points are within the program that you're doing, and really make sure those one-on-one opportunities are around those struggle points to really help people through that.
Yep. So I want to come back to that. I want to, because I do that, and I want to make a comment. But first, let's go through some of the comments on here. So Davina has one, so you can read them, right? Go ahead, because I love what she typed in there.
Right. Yeah. In the words of Franklin Roosevelt, people acting together as a group can accomplish things which no individual acting alone could ever hope to bring about. And I think that's the power of groups, right? I think that when you've got it set up and it's a safe space and there really is that connection, you can do so much more with that group of people.
Yeah. And then Rachel's comment, what about the group working towards similar goals? Yeah. And typically I would hope in my groups that we are, right? So realtors are working towards getting more clients or getting more listings, right? It's similar, and they might be exact, but they're similar, and they work together or support and encourage and motivate each other. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's part of the strategy with the group, is really understanding. I call it nail the outcome, but it's that there has to be an agreed upon outcome for why they're saying yes, right? If you look at kind of like, ICF or something like that, group coaching, pure group coaching is the coaching experience with a group. And so you can absolutely do that. My experience has been, you need a bit more of structure to that, and kind of saying, these are the goals, this is the outcome, for people to say, yes, I want to do that. And so that's where kind of that balance between sharing wisdom and helping them to imitate and then integrate what it is you're teaching them.
Yeah. Yes. And Chris says, I also like the higher ROI with the group. I suspect, Chris, you are an A+ client in a group, because, right, you get out of it what you put into it, right?
Just like with one-on-one, right? Yes. The difference is that if you're not really committed and you go into a group, sometimes it's easier to hide. Yeah. But again, I would kind of say, like, that part of that is about how are you onboarding your clients into the group program, where they know that taking part in the group is part of the expectation, and they hold each other accountable to that.
Yeah. Yes. And sometimes that's where the coaching comes in, when they come back, because we coach, twice a month, they come back 2 weeks later and they didn't do any of the homework, right? Or they didn't go back and, ask clients for, who do you know that also wants a roof, or who else do you know that I can help, find them a home. And if they're not going out there and looking and asking, because sales and marketing is huge in any business, right? It just doesn't automatically come in. Even with my realtors, they'll say, like, well, we're the only business that has to ask. I'm like, no, you don't. When was the last time you went to a really nice restaurant and the owner came to the table and said, how was your dinner? And we'd love to see you come back, right?
Yes.
I mean, they're asking for business. They're asking you to come back and please bring your friends, right?
Yeah.
Because it has to happen.
Yes.
And I see LinkedIn posts where people are saying, yeah, that's the hardest part of my business is asking for more business. So as a group, we practice together, but not everybody goes and does it, right? They come back
Yes.
and like, yeah, my business didn't grow. And I'm like, well, how many people did you talk to? Well, I
Yeah.
got busy, and that's okay. That's the coaching. Well, what got in the
That's the
way?
coaching. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And it's no different from one-on-one with groups, all that kind of that piece of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you, Rachel, for the compliment. I think you're a pretty phenomenal human too.
Yes.
Yep. And then let's see what Chris said here. Yeah, well, yeah, but I also talking about from the coach's view, same amount of
Yes.
time, but more money with one-to-one clients. Sure, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where that business outcome comes in, right?
Yeah.
The reality is like your per cost for the hour that you're in the group, you have more money than a one-on-one client potentially. And there's work that you have to do that's a little bit different. But it is usually what happens is group programs become an option because as a coach, you've either run out of, I say, calendar space or energy, right?
Yeah.
To keep adding, or there's little room to kind of increase your per client rate. And so you start saying, how can I use groups to help with that? The other thing is groups are really powerful for answering that what's next. So if you have a great one-on-one program and they're doing really well, at the end of it, they're kind of like, what's next? What can I do? And groups are a perfect way to kind of get them to that next stage with you too, and get them involved with your community.
Yeah. And Gretchen said it's also where you can build community for your business as well. And if we're going to stay on Chris's page with, from the coach's perspective, yes, I have 12 realtors in my realtor group and they've all given me a referral. So that's 12 referrals, right?
Yeah.
So that's a great ROI, hence starting my second realtor group. But the comment I wanted to I promised I'd go back to was, yes, I have one-to-one clients. And then what I learned, what they love is once a month. In fact, I talked to Chris about this. Once a month, I put them all together.
Yeah.
So they get me twice a month, one-on-one, 45 minutes. They're very successful. And then once a month, I put them together on Zoom and they love seeing each other. And they're like, yeah, isn't Tanya hard? So they can commiserate on, because I can come across kind of friendly. That's not always the case. And you can ask Rachel, because she knows, right? And it's like, oh my God, it's right between the eyes. That felt ouchy. But they love getting together once a month, as a group. Of course, I'm not, and then I also bring in guest speakers. So I'm hoping Chris will get on as a guest speaker because my realtors don't want to do video or go live stream. I have yet to have one as a guest. They won't come on live with me, right? They're so nervous about it, right? So I'd love, Chris, I know I'm not hinting because we've talked about it, right, to get on this year. But I've had Ariel Lee. She's coming on next Friday as a financial planner. So Ariel Lee is going to be a guest. And and I've had a health insurance person come on as a guest, and they come on for about 20 minutes. Yeah. And then we have another about an hour. It's about an hour and 15 minutes where they can I just sit back and drink coffee and let them, hey, what do you do? Hey, what do you do? So that's not so much group coaching, but it is creating a community for them and they love it.
Absolutely. And sometimes, it's part of the magic, I think, of groups. If you've done the strategy really well and you've crafted it really well, there is a certain extent of you being able to kind of just let it happen. But it's not because it's easy. It's because you did all the work ahead of time and you're just responsible for maintaining the safety of that space and allowing everybody to connect and share.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Chris, thank you. If you want to private message me a reminder, I'll send you a link. How about April? So it's typically the third Friday, as long as it's not Good Friday, because I know Easter is going to be somewhere around April. Typically, for my one-to-one clients, I put them on together. It's the third Friday, 7:30 a.m. Pacific. If you want to be a guest speaker, let me know. I'd love it. And then if I have to change the time, I'll change the time. So what else? Before we hang up,
Right? They hang up.
I show my age with this.
Right. I think the only thing that I would say is, I am such an advocate and cheerleader for group programs. And I really want to encourage people as they're considering it to get some help. It doesn't have to be from me. I'd love it if it is.
Right.
But in terms of just really strategizing around what is your business purpose for doing it, you need to understand that. And what is it that your clients want and need? Because every other decision you make will be based on that. So I encourage you to have groups. I love groups, but make sure it's the right fit for you.
Yeah. And I do want to encourage everybody. I believe every human walking on earth needs a coach. I have a coach, right? And I've been coaching groups for years and years and years. But when I switched my model and I switched who I'm coaching, I happily reached out to you and said, okay, I don't want to do bumps and bruises, right? I want this to be really good going out the gate. And I'm so impressed with what I have in my hand now, right? So now I need people signing up.
Right? Yeah, we just need people. We need people in it, and we will, right? And that's the point. Is you've got a program that's going to absolutely deliver results. It's going to create group and community for business owners, and they're going to be able to say at the end of it, "Is I have a business plan. Not only do I have one, I've already put it into effect. I'm having success. I know what I'm doing on a monthly, weekly, and daily basis."
Yeah. And for coaches out there, anybody else who wants to, any business that's looking at group coaching, or I want to offer this, then go over here.
Right here. Yeah.
Right.
No,
to create
have
it.
a conversation.
Yeah. All right. So how do people find you?
So I'm most active. I'm only really active on LinkedIn. So that's the best place to find me. You can sign up through my LinkedIn to have a call with me. We can do a clarity call, or you can just kind of ring my bell and get the information as I'm putting it out there on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active here. So
awesome. Well, thank you. This was fun. I'm glad we popped in and kind of did our chat around group coaching, because there are a lot of questions around it, and you've helped me a lot. And so I'm very grateful. And when that happens, I want to share that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody for coming. This was awesome.
Yeah, this was really fun. Thank you, everybody, for spending some Friday afternoon with us. So yay. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye.